I see a conflict between the leadership style that is smartest guy in the room, which is sort of Oppenheimer and his scientists, and the leadership style that is more compassionate, I suppose, or more inclusive, leading through being the strongest and brightest, which later I think we talk about now in sort of a negative way as being the smartest guy in the room, right? That goal is I think maybe a bit of a dangerous one in a way, and that you do end up with this situation where just because someone has a great deal of technical ability or is indeed smarter than everybody else in the room doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make the best decisions if they can't also listen and think outside of maybe their own specialty.
Ooh, that's really good, Dave. I have a practical story about that recently. So, actually, I was working on my vision board, creating a dream board and goals and the art that goes along with that so that I can feel inspiration when I look at it and make sure that those emotions are aligned with where I'm going. Whatever. So I was searching for an image that had to do with being a leader that empowers others because I don't so I was using Dolly 3, the image generation AI model, to try to help me create some images and get some inspiration. And the images it was creating was like a guy in a suit standing in front of a crowd giving a speech or something like that, and it just doesn't feel right. It did not feel right at all,
You
right?
have discovered algorithmic bias.
Exactly, right. It's like, oh yeah, we need yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? It's like, okay, there's this very like stereotypical guy in a suit standing in front and everybody's clapping and they're happy, and that's what it thinks leadership is. And I was like, no, that's not what leadership is. And it occurred to me this morning while I was meeting with a mentor what leadership actually is. He was talking about another leader who I have a lot of respect for. I don't know him super well, but extremely compassionate guy. When he walks into the room, everything lights up. His name is Bishop Johnny. He is at one of the homeless ministry that we do. He lets us use his facility to be able to do that. And he's not there all the time. But this is what my friend was telling me. He was saying he shows up and he doesn't have to be there all the time because when he's there, he sets up. So he will work with some of our guests in this homeless ministry, and it literally solved my vision image problem when he described the way that Johnny sits with the guests. So he will take them upstairs after the meal, and he will go up and he will make a U, and he will sit in the center of the U, and he will turn his way around the U, and he will talk and ask questions, and he will listen to each person. And he sits in the center so that it's not a classroom environment, it's not a speaking environment. He is building up people by understanding them better, by being there, by sitting next to them at their level with them. That's the type of leader that we want to be here. So I love what you said, Dave. It's like sometimes when we look at it, we're not here to criticize these people in these movies and stuff like that. That's not Wonder Tour reframes things rather than criticizes. But there is something to learn where you're like, okay, yeah, maybe that method isn't going to, maybe the method of being Oppie isn't going to work in my workplace. It isn't going to work in my family. It isn't going to work in my, nonprofit or whatever.
I think the hard part can be how to balance those two. Sometimes, we do see the use of quite a bit of hard power in the movie in terms of, tough decision making by traditional sort of tough my way or the highway leaders. But somehow we also know that that's not the whole story. It's not the whole story in the movie for sure, but it's also maybe not something that we think about so much. It's not something that's obvious until you present yourself with that question. Well, why can't I be Oppenheimer? Well, I'm not going to be that guy. But what can we do to be more effective? I mean, how can we learn these other skills? Because the story about you said Bishop Johnny, right? Is that did I
Yeah.
get the name right? He strikes me as the sort that is a different kind of Oppenheimer, but a sort of a moral or a genius of another sort that people recognize. That his authority comes from something moral, and other people recognize that. And that is, I mean, certainly we can study and learn to be smarter, but maybe we can also study and learn to be more compassionate.
Well, I'm sure there's something in there, right, about the leadership style has to be appropriate to the context, to the people that you're leading, and the kind of thing that you're trying to accomplish as an organization, to the higher purpose, right? You said not just the goal, but the purpose. And that's very. There are a lot of different kinds of organizations. There's a lot of different kinds of people that you might be placed in a leadership role relative to, and being amidst a group of volunteers or being amidst a group of people that just need help is a very different environment than being amidst a group of hyper motivated people with an existential crisis, right? So there, all these techniques are good to know about, because the reason we do this, the reason we have these discussions on Wonder Tour, is to have mental models of, oh, this is the kind of situation I'm in, this is the kind of skillful response that might work for me. And so I love having the Bishop Johnny mental image of like sitting at the same level or lower in the middle of a group and engaging with them one at a time is a very different mental model than standing up in the pulpit and expostulating. Right. So that's very cool. Thanks, Drew.